Many of us think that life is happening to us, and sometimes it actually feels like it is. However, there is an invisible pattern going on in what kinds of things we can allow ourselves to experience. When people can come to you, work with you, there's much more connection, and the author themselves is more in the driver's seat. Because the boundary isn't out there. We think it's the money, we think it's this, we think it's that. That's not the boundary. The boundary is my thinking about those things. And then as we transform that, all kinds of opportunities, situations begin to occur.
Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Mary Morrissey. Mary's incredible. I've been hearing about her for years now. Big events, huge business, great books. I feel like so many people have brought her up. I met multiple, we were talking about this beforehand, multiple of her sons who work with her in her business, and she's just amazing. It's great to finally have her on the podcast. She's the founder of the Brave Thinking Institute. She's the author of multiple books, including her new book called Brave Thinking. So grab a copy. It's called Brave Thinking. And she runs an just incredibly inspiring business, helping people create businesses as a life coach, create transformational coaching, that sort of thing. So we're going to kind of dive into that today. So books with the business, but then also background on the coaching business, books together with coaching. There's a lot of stuff to unpack. I'm excited. Mary, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Chandler.
So I guess my first question is, why books as a part of your business? Like, as I was looking back, I'm like, oh, way back to audio programs with Bob Proctor. It just feels like there's been kind of this common theme of books throughout your business. Why is that? And how does it tie in with what you do?
Oh, books. A book is a way of giving someone a piece of what really matters to you, whether it's a fiction book or whether it's a nonfiction book, but you give them a piece of you with something they can hold in their hand or use digitally now, and we have audiobooks, of course, but it's a communication, a one-on-one communication with someone who is interested enough in whatever the topic is you have put out, that you can begin to build a relationship that supports them. My first book, I didn't write books until my first book, I was in my 40s. My first book was Building Your Field of Dreams. And I was working with this concept of brave thinking versus common hour thinking, and unpacking how transformation really occurs. And that book became so popular, it became a PBS special. And since then, I've done a series of other books, Brave Thinking being the most recent one. So the tagline on that book is the art and science of creating a life you love. So lots of people have dreams, but dream building, turning your results into what you dreamed, is another whole matter. And there's a science involved in that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So I think a lot of people will resonate, especially listening to this first book in your 40s. We have a lot of people that listen to this podcast. They're writing their first book in their 50s, 60s, and it's something that they've wanted to do for a really long time. Yeah. So what was the spark for you to decide on that first book?
The work that I was doing had a certain reach to it. And I just felt, it'd been in my mind, which I think many of your viewers, the same thing, this idea of you should write a book. But I didn't really harness that and then apply it until I was in my 40s. I wanted to have a larger reach with what I knew helped people have a life they love, and how to unpack it and make it simple for them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you get that turned into a PBS special? That's wild. What's the story behind that?
Well, a series of things occurred. I was writing the book when, this is 1995, while I was writing the book, an imprint of Random House, Bantam. It was Bantam Doubleday Dell. So Bantam division had heard about my work. In those days, we didn't have money for television broadcasting. We didn't have the internet as it is today. Certainly not for what we're doing today. So people would sign up for my cassette tapes of the messages I was bringing forth. We didn't have Facebook or any of those things.
Yeah.
So they saw what I was, the reach that I had with the means that we had. So they wanted to publish my book. So they came to me, offered me a six-figure advance. And so then I got busy. I really put it together, got it done. And then because of the reach in those days, publishers used to provide marketing. You know, it's all changed. The whole industry has changed, of course, now. I think for the better, honestly. I think when people can come with you, to you, work with you, there's much more connection, and really the author themselves is more in the driver's seat, which
Right.
not the case in those opportunities. So they're the ones who brought out of the national office, out of Washington, D.C., the PBS special people.
No
And
way.
yeah,
And did
so
that, I mean, was that kind of just a fun thing that you did? Did that move a lot of books? Was that helpful for the business? Like, what was that experience like?
what it did bring was the reach. You know, that is a marketing tool. My friend Wayne
Right.
Dyer, of course, did many of those. He and I were mentored by the same man. Wayne, Les Brown, and I were all mentored by the same man. And so mine, and then, gosh, Wayne did many PBS specials.
And who was the mentor for all of you guys? And was that specific to the PBS special or just in general business?
No, his name was Jack Boland. He passed away in 92. And I began to work with him in 87, and with Les Brown and Wayne. And
Yeah.
none of us were who we became until we worked with Jack Boland. He understood the invisible pattern for how visible things occur. Many of us think that life is happening to us, and sometimes it actually feels like it is. However, there's an invisible pattern going on in what kinds of things we can allow ourselves to experience. So understanding that, I was starting to build my teaching work, teaching transformation. And I was doing a once a week lecture, and I had gotten stuck at like 40 people. I mean, and I was renting an old Oddfellows hall, and there was curling old linoleum up on the edges of the room, and it had metal chairs, and I didn't really have money for advertising. And so the story I was telling myself in my head was the reason we weren't more successful is I don't have advertising money, and who wants to sit on metal chairs and look at that dirty linoleum. So I went to hear him speak. I got to Chicago to hear Jack Boland speak. He had a long track record in a much larger success in the area that I wanted to be successful in, training and teaching people in how to have transformation in their lives. And I asked him if he'd have breakfast with me. I said, can I buy you breakfast next morning? Because it's a 3-day conference. And he says, no, I'm co-leading this event. You know, I can't go to breakfast with you. And then he paused and he said, but I'll tell you what, I'll meet you in the cafe. If you can be there at 7 a.m., I'll give you 30 minutes. So I was in that booth waiting for him. He came down, slid in the booth and says, how can I help you? And I said, I want to do what you're doing. He had, where I was at 40 people, he had 700 people coming once a week to hear him speak. And he had radio and some television in the Northeast. And he looked at me and he goes, I can help you with that, but it's going to cost you. And immediately my body moved back and I said, how much? And he goes, oh, that's your problem. And I went, what do you mean that's my problem? What's my, I didn't know what he was talking about. And he says, you actually think that how much something costs has to do with what you want. And I might as well have been speaking Martian to me. I said, of course I think that. Everybody I know, you ask how much it costs so you can know if you can do it. He says, I'm telling you, that's your problem. There's another way to do this. And he was the first one who started introducing me to this concept of brave thinking. Because ultimately, even in that half hour, he told me, it isn't the linoleum, it isn't the chairs, it isn't the lack of dollars for advertising, it's your thinking about those things that have got you blocked. Change your results, we got to change you, what you're thinking about these things, because they create chains around you. Invited me, he was doing a 1-year mentoring program, he'd already selected 2 men. He said, I'd been having the feeling there might be a woman that would be right for this. And if it's not you, I'll get somebody else. But in those days, it was $19,000 for this. I didn't have $19,000. I mean, I was a mom with 4 kids and I'm building this work. And he said, well, do you have a rainy day fund? And then I felt like, oh my God, he's just trying to sell me. And I said, well, yes. He says, Why don't you invest it in a sunny life? Why save it for something to go wrong? Why not invest this? He says, I promise you, if you do this, a year from now, you will have doubled or tripled your results. And it'll be easy for you to pay this. And so I got myself to Detroit, went to the conference room where we were going to begin. The two men there I met, Les and Wayne, and then got introduced to Les Brown, Wayne Dyer, and Mary Morrissey. And we worked with Jack Boland as his mentees for 5 years. He completely helped me. I had studied a lot about transformation from the philosophies, the religions. I had a master's in psychology. I did a 2-year seminary to study all the world's religions and how have we learned about how real transformation occurs. And over time, I began to realize, and once I began to study further here, even in the US, there were 2 revolutions in the United States. The first revolution was the revolution to free ourselves from British rule. The second revolution occurred between 50 and 60 years later. It began in the Northeast, out of Boston, in a place called Concord, that became a revolution of thinking. It was Emerson, it was Thoreau, it was this group of people that would get together on Sunday nights and have a different kind of conversation that would ultimately be developed into a philosophy called transcendentalism, meaning that there's a part of us that is more than our circumstances, situations, and conditions. When Thoreau would do his experiment with life by building this little cabin by the lake, like Walden Pond, he would then write in his conclusion of that 2-year, 2-month, and 2 days experiment with life. He said, I went to the woods because I wanted to learn what life really had to teach me and not find out when I came to die that I hadn't even really lived. And so, so his journey, but he writes what became a very, very famous quote. If one advances confidently in the direction of their dream, endeavoring to live the life they've imagined, you pass an invisible boundary. And all sorts of things begin to occur that never otherwise would have occurred, and you begin to live with the license of a higher order of being. So when you unpack that, if one advances in the direction, so for all of us who are listening right now, you can't advance in a direction of something you haven't dreamed up. So you ask the question, what would I love? What would I love my book to be? What would I love with the publishing were really easy? What would I love? Who would I love to impact? Or any other part of your life where you want to dream up a result that you don't currently have. It's not what do I think I can have? What does the economy say I can have? Thoreau defined this as common hour thinking. Mm-hmm. And he says, when you break an invisible boundary, you pass an invisible boundary, because the boundary isn't out there. We think it's the money, we think it's this, we think it's that. Mm-hmm. That's not the boundary. The boundary is my thinking about those things. And then as we transform that, all kinds of opportunities, situations begin to occur. And I began to study that. I was teaching my forms of it, but Jack Boland was the one who said, your boundary is you. We got to change your thinking. And within that year, we went about 1.5 times more. So I had 40 people, I was having 100 people at the end of that year. And it was in that little Oddfellow place on those metal chairs.
The place didn't change, the thinking did.
No, the thinking did. Mm-hmm. And it helped me create a crystal clear vision. And so that's what the book, Brave Thinking, does. It helps you clarify in the major areas of your life a crystal clear vision, and then shows you very simple and highly effective steps you can take to move yourself into a mindset and actually a vibrational match to the result you want. Most people have dreams, they just stay in their thoughts. But, think about your television. You turn on your television, if you go to CNN, constantly negative news, it just is. It's going to be problems, difficulties, challenges, and that's the world you operate in. And somebody says, you know what, there's at least 1,000 other frequencies you could pick from. You want to go to discovery, you want to go to romance, you want to go to travel, adventure, pick one. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, easy with a television remote control, bam, and you're on that frequency, and all the old pictures go away of problems, and now I'm on adventure or romance. Well, it's different in the human experience. Not so easy to pick up. There's no remote for your thinking or my thinking. We have to install an understanding of how to move from one frequency to another on which the results we actually want become more available. We're dealing with we're in a spiral universe. In a spiral universe, there's an ever upward pull to becoming. You see it's life seeking to express itself more fully everywhere by means of itself, meaning in a tree, it's pressing to become more of itself by growing the edges of itself. Blade of grass will press through cement seeking the light because that pull to becoming is in the blade of grass, no less in you or me. That pull of becoming to what we would really enjoy, what we would really love to have. And I believe that life energy in us speaks to us in two ways. It sends signals of longing and it sends signals of discontent. Where we go, oh, I just would love it if I could send my kids to whatever school I'd love to send them to. Or I would just love it if I could, send my aging parents or do something so you have that, I would love that. And then I'm so tired of feeling constrained in money, or I'm so tired of getting into bed every night alone, or whatever it is. I'm so tired of telling myself I'm going to write this book and then not find to get it done. And we want to pay attention to that because those are signs of life that really has our name on it. The difference between the tree has no will to thwart that press of life, but humans can. We can say, I'm not going to do it now. It's not convenient after the kids finish college. And we push that, what is really life seeking to happen with us, down. And that can go on for a very long time. And it's expensive because what is life going to do? It forms patterns of unfulfilled life. We call those problems, difficulty, diseases, all of where the constriction has been living in us. So brave thinking then gives you a path to unlock the parts of you that have been talking to you, get a pattern or a picture for what you would really love your life to be like, and then invite you to do an experiment by applying some very simple but highly effective practices. And you turn around and you are going to see an improvement in your life to the degree that you apply it.
That's cool. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that framework. I hope you're loving this episode so far. So if you're serious about writing and publishing your book, we would love to chat with you and help create a custom plan. All right. So all you need to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. Schedule a 45-minute consultation with one of the experts on my team. All right. Let's implement what you're learning in this episode and let's see how we can help with your book. Go to selfpublishing.com/schedule. I think it's interesting to see how, obviously you've had the Brave Thinking Institute and the business has done really well. I see over your left-hand shoulder, Brave Thinking Masters, like that big box. And then over your right shoulder, the Brave Thinking book. What was the spark to finally write the Brave? Oh, it's almost like the book, the key pillar book for the business. What was the inspiration for that? And how have you used that book to grow the core business?
A couple of things. One, the system of transformation, I've been working with tens of thousands of clients over the 40 years I've been training. I did 10 years of study, which I mentioned, academic degrees and different things before I ever started teaching at all. And the business side of that, I didn't have acumen in. So hence I bring in Jack Bulland, and he was very good at unlocking ways in which I could be the person who's having the result I want in business. And so I had many other programs and lots of things, but I'm in my 70s right now, and I just thought I want to take the 50 years of study and the 40 years of teaching and combine that in a handbook, in something that not only teaches about it, but gives you a very simple step-by-step way to experience it yourself. When Thoreau defined common hour thinking, when you go, he described it. What common hour thinking is looking to circumstances, situations, and conditions for permission to be who you want to be, do what you want to do, and have what you want to have. So I don't have the time right now, or I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think, I didn't get my degree, and so we constrain ourselves. That's common hour thinking, because circumstances, situations, and conditions don't give me permission. Brave thinking, on the other hand, is a training that we do with ourselves so that we learn to think and live from a vision regardless of circumstances, situations, or conditions. And I would say, Chandler, you must be a brave thinker, given what you've been able to accomplish, the people you're able to reach and help, the business that you have built, that it took some brave thinking. Because I'm sure circumstances at time argued for why you couldn't. and you didn't let that win. You won over those circumstances.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, circumstances and people. That's the funny part, right? Is when I remember when I dropped out of school, people came out of the woodworks saying, "Hey, this is a bad idea. What are you doing? You know, you can finish your degree and all these things." And so it's just like there are those moments in time where you've got to say, "Hey, I feel so internally convicted about this thing that I'm going to think bravely, and I'm going to go off kind of the standard path." And what I see is different from what people see, maybe other people see. And I'm sure you felt this way, and a lot of people that you've worked with have felt that way. But just because it's not their path. You know, a lot of times I feel like well-intentioned people will say you shouldn't do a thing because it doesn't fit within the constraints of how their vision for their life, right? So they're putting that on you. But yes, exercising those moments to say, "Hey, I believe in this, so I'm going to pursue it."
I'm going to have
Yes,
my thought.
exactly.
Les Brown once said, you got to learn to silence the critics around you and silence the critics within you.
Sometimes one's louder than the other. Yeah, I guess it flip-flops a little bit, huh? Yeah. So I guess maybe zooming out a little bit, big picture, the business Brave Thinking Institute. I know that you guys have a one component of your business is certifying life coaches, and then there's you teach transformational coaching process. For the layman, what is life coaching, and how is that kind of who do you typically help go down that path that maybe think like, "Hey, I haven't even heard of this," but then they end up working with you guys and pursuing that?
Are you asking those who want to become a coach or those who come to us for coaching?
Those who want to become a coach.
Well, they've had, at some point, they've gotten tired of trading time for money, which is what most employed people do, and might have had a very fulfilling career, as in some regard, and then they want something that had more meaning, more significance, more difference making. They want to claim their own hours, earn this. There's an unending amount of money. You set the lid on what you want to earn and the way you want to put your programs together. So we have several phases of what we train. We train people in an evocative coaching methodology versus a directive. Many coaches become they're directive in telling you what to do. Most of the thinking that they tell you what to do with comes out of common hour thinking. And so people use a traditional path to produce results. At Brave Thinking Institute, we train and certify people in Brave Thinking, which is a simple, repeatable, reliable system of transformation that works every single time. In the same way that when Edison invented the incandescent bulb, he knew he didn't want to just invent a bulb. He wanted a system by which it could be employed in businesses and in buildings and cathedrals and shacks and anywhere we wanted light after dark. That had never happened in human history. So the development of the system and the code by which every building would be wired that was based in an understanding about how electricity flows, so it could be replicated. Well, as I spent those years studying and looking at all the ways people brought transformation in their lives and study the hidden pattern of that, I began to see a hidden code. And that is the code that we walk people through when they come to us. We train the coaches in doing this. We have coaches now in 152 countries. And the model is the same every time because this is how transformation occurs. You can want something, but it stays in the land of want unless we change the vibration by which we're operating, and all our results change. So we help people do that. We also bring a component to coaching in our coach training, and thank you for asking, is we train in the economic engine. This is a coaching business.
Yeah.
Not a coaching hobby, although some people treat it that way in the world of coaching, but not here. This is business of helping people. So side of that, how that operates, how integrous it is. I mean, all the many of that. That's another whole chunk of the training that we do. Yeah.
That's cool. And that reminds me of it's one of my favorite quotes by Rami Vance. He runs the fiction side of our business. And he says, if you treat it like a hobby, it'll pay like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, it'll pay like a business. And what do business owners do? They invest in their growth. They have an economic engine. They have a model. They expect to make a profit. they invest to make a profit. There's a difference between an investment and an expense, right? And so there's all these kind of things that just that going back to the thinking modalities, just that change in thinking from, okay, I am coaching as a hobby to I am coaching as a business. It's a very different way of thinking. What do you see as the biggest differences? Like, what are the 2 or 3 things that the folks who see it as a business, especially if they're working with you and you're coaching them on this, what are the things that you have them focus on so that it actually can be a business and not just a hobby?
First of all, marketing, how you get your message, I'm here, I can help. How you get that out, and we give them a very specific way of making it easy for people to experience a version of what you give them and work with them. And then, so it's marketing, it's enrollment. So what the process is of helping somebody make a decision for themselves. Many coaches particularly come in feeling like they're selling me. If I'm selling a program, I'm actually trying. None of us want to try to convince somebody to work with us. So we train them, and you're not selling you. You're selling a program that produces results, and it's for them. What you're selling is the dream. What it is they want. You have to help them hook to that. Notice the gap. So we have them do a life assessment. And if you notice where your results are now, and then what would you really love in the areas of your life, particularly the areas that are least fulfilling right now. So if you could change that, what would be happening that you would absolutely love? Notice the gap between where you are and where you want to be. How long has that gap been going on? For some, it's years of some form of life, from chronic illnesses, loneliness, difficulty, discordance in relationships, but vocation that is not fulfilling and difference making. We all, it's in the human experience to have many of these things going on without real hope about how you can change it. So you have them do an assessment, look at the gap, how long it's been there, and the pain it's been causing. Let's cross the gap. That's what we do. We go from there. We can take you across that gap.
Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, that's a great framework. That then if you reverse engineer your marketing based on that, if you reverse engineer your enrollment, as you called it, based on that, it's all going to get easier. And I think when you connect it back to the concept of a book, this is something we talk about all the time, people, is the 4 P's of a best-selling book is person, pain, promise, price. And so, okay, who's the person that you're writing this book to? What's the pain that they have that they know that they have? And then what's the promise that you can make with this book? And so getting super clear on that. And when you do that, when your book's about your business, well, then now when they read the book, they're very likely to become a customer. So I guess my question to you around that would be, have you seen any of your coaches use books as a method of marketing or enrollment? And if so, what did that look like? And how do they use it? Like, is it something that you recommend or no?
Absolutely. If you have, particularly versus just an autobiographical story, biographical story for coaches, is it can have some of you in it, but you also want it to be the proof of the concept that I was coaching this person. You either get permission or you change the name. And success story, where you take them through that ride. I've seen wonderful books that coaches have written that have helped them promote who they are and how they help people with the means of a book that they wrote.
What would be your advice for someone listening to this who maybe has a book and and it's about a thing that they're really good at, and they want to kind of cross that gap of like, okay, I'm just kind of helping people as a hobby to I'm helping people as a business, and I want to get my first handful of coaching clients. Like, what's a first step that somebody can take to actually go from hobby to business coaching on the back of their book?
Well, you don't want to just get clients. I mean, that you do want that, but you want to know what's the process that you're going to bring to them so that they get real value, because they don't stay unless they're getting real value. They are not going to stay with you. And so being trained is the first thing to do. Get trained and certified. That, in today's world, anybody can call themselves a coach. And there's no demand or legal reason that you need to get certified. But if you're a person who really cares about helping people, I'm not selling my coaching program, we're one, but I'm saying you want to make sure that you can feel in integrity that you have a model or a system you're using that will help people, not just come to you and talk about their problems every week, but okay, so here's what's not working. Let's let's lay a plan here for how to move you to what it is that would be what working looks like for you. So designing a vision in terms of the coaching, I believe is the first step in a good coaching program, is learning to help people design a vision. They'll tell you about their current circumstances, situations, and conditions, but that's not what they want to just repeat all of it. The reason they come to you for coaching is they want some change. So we got to be the person who can help them know how to really make lasting change.
Got it. So you come at it from the standpoint of, okay, hey, we've got a good book, and maybe that has some of the core frameworks. But now, if we want to turn that into a coaching business, you got to create the frameworks that are going to drive results for the clients. Start there. Then you have the confidence and conviction to do the things that you talked about earlier that you guys teach and help people with of marketing, of enrollment, et
And
cetera.
test your theories. Once you get what we just spoke about, then get 5 people together. You can even invite people to. I'm doing this. You can have the first round at 50% off, because they're a gift to you as well as you being a gift to them. And you're going to learn some things that really work and some things
Yeah.
that fell flat. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that reminds me, the very first time, I mean, we created what ultimately became Self-Publishing School and then selfpublishing.com, is we did exactly what you said. And it was sell. I'm a big proponent of sell, then build. Like, I'd done the framework. I'd successfully published books, and people started asking about it. Then we said, all right, we're going to build this curriculum, but we don't want to build the thing that people don't want. We want to build the thing that people actually want. So we were super upfront with people, and we said, hey, we're going to do a beta version of this program. And there's going to be, like, I think it was a $3,000 price point and a $1,000 price point. And the $3,000 price point, you get some one-on-one coaching. This was, hard to believe, this was like a decade ago. So then we had our first cohort of 44 people, and we guided them through that process, but we were constantly saying, hey, what do you need help with? What are your goals? What's the next step and all that? And so then they would feed the curriculum, but then out of that, we got better curriculum. We got really great testimonials. There was all of these things that and we had a super high success rate. But to your point, we said, hey, this is going to be the best pricing it'll ever be. You're going to have the most access to us that'll ever exist in this program. And yeah, we're doing it for the first time, teaching others, but that's why we're doing this. And we want this to be a huge win for you. And so I feel like a lot of times people feel very skittish and self-conscious that first time.
Felt really good for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it was super straightforward. Yeah. And they loved it too, because they're like, oh, we get to design the curriculum. It was like, yeah, exactly what you need help with. We're going to create that custom for you. And so it was a win-win-win. And so I think it's just a testament to the framework that you guys teach and employ, is test it. And like you said, maybe it's 50% off or whatever the thing is, so that it feels good and it makes it a win-win at the start. Mary, I guess maybe my next to last question would be, you've done a bunch of books at this point. What do you know now about that process that you would say to the Mary from however long ago, or the Marys listening to this that are thinking about writing their first book, maybe in their 40s or 50s or 60s?
I would say, first of all, get a vision for what you want the book to be, and then do the reverse engineering. So there's something really powerful about baby steps. This could sound like a daunting project. Oh, I want to write a book, but it feels like a mountain of work, or you can feel little in presence of the big dream of your very own book. But I'm a big believer in baby steps. Baby steps will take you all the way up Mount Everest if you just keep taking them. So create a chapter list or a table of contents. Where are you going to start? Where are you going to end? And what are the steps? So it's at the end of your book, what do you want people to be thinking and feeling and having? And if you want them to be doing something with the content. So you get clear on where you want to end, and then you have your beginning point. And once you have the structure of the book, like the bones, like our skeletal system, all the flesh and the organs are going to form around it, and the stories will start coming to you. I would always keep with you, now today it's so easy to keep notes, because you're in a shopping mall and you overhear something and you write it down because it fits exactly with the story that is going to be. So you've got the bones, and then you add in, I could put this story here, and you can move them around while you're putting it together. And once you have a pretty clear through line, know that the book starts talking to you. is no longer you just talking to make the book happen, but the book itself has a life of its own. And you want to be hearing it talk to you, because all kinds of things will start coming to you to help the book be better if you pay attention to and honor its life, not just
That's cool. I love that. Mary, this has been amazing. Where can people go to find out more about you, to join the Brave Thinking Institute, or buy the Brave Thinking book? What's the best place that people can go?
Okay, well, it says here, you must have it, well, interestingly, I don't see where it says, but go to bti.com/book, I would think, or Brave Thinking. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
You can go to bti.com for sure. That's our institute. But also, we do a live 3-day training in Brave Thinking that we 3 times a year. So if that interests you, you could come virtually, you can come in person. That's another option. And when you buy the book, there are some bonuses, and those I do have right in front of me. So Designing a Life You Love, guided meditation bundle, our brand new 100 common hour thoughts and how to transform them, and Winning the Battles of the Mind, which is an affirmation collection. So how you can say things to yourself so you don't get trapped in that, oh, it's a linoleum, it's this and this that's constraining. So we're going to change the thoughts that bring more openness, ability, and difference making.
Love it. Guys, bti.com, bravethinkinginstitute.com, and obviously the new book called Brave Thinking. Mary, this was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Chandler. I say to everybody, be sure you get your book done with Chandler.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you could be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you could be listening to, YouTube channels that you could be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.